It's funny. Usually when you sign a contract, say you rent an apartment or you lease a car,
Right.
the boundaries are they're incredibly clear. You pay a fee, you get to use the space or the vehicle for a very specific amount of time, and that is it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody signs a lease for an apartment and suddenly thinks, oh, I own the entire building now.
No, you'd be left out of the room.
Right. But then you step into the world of modern employment, specifically the corporate landscape, and suddenly those boundaries get incredibly blurry.
Oh, very blurry.
Yeah, we're looking at a dynamic today that is, well, it's murky to say the least. And that brings us directly into today's mission for this deep dive. We are navigating the complex, sometimes highly toxic waters of the modern Indian workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And we're pulling from this really comprehensive manifesto on employee rights and workplace ethics. And right at the top of this text, there is a quote that just stops you in your tracks. It says, "A salary does not give an employer ownership over an employee."
It's a powerful statement.
It really is.
And it's powerful precisely because it strikes right at the heart of, well, an unspoken assumption in a lot of corporate cultures.
Yeah.
There's this lingering, like, almost feudal mindset that paying someone a monthly wage entitles the company to their total allegiance.
Wow. Yeah.
Their weekends, their unquestioning compliance. It's deeply ingrained.
So that distinction between managing a business and outright ownership I think that's where the gray area usually lies. And to be clear, right off the bat, this isn't an anti-business discussion.
Oh, absolutely not, no.
Right. The text makes a fantastic point that good businesses absolutely need performance standards. They need accountability. Leaders have to make difficult, unpopular decisions sometimes.
Exactly. There is a massive difference between managing performance and exploiting vulnerability.
Right.
Accountability is about setting clear goals and measuring outcomes. Exploitation is about leveraging an employee's need for a paycheck to sort of force them into accepting unacceptable conditions.
And that's exactly what we're looking at today. Our focus today is entirely on decoding the exploitation side of that equation.
Yeah, which means we really need to start at the very beginning of the employment relationship.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So before you even get into the daily grind of a toxic workplace, the tone is completely set by how a company values your work on paper.
Right.
So we need to talk about the illusion of the offer, or what is famously known in India as the 20 lakh CTC trap.
Ah, CTC. Yes. Cost to company.
It is one of the most brilliant and frankly deceptive pieces of corporate packaging out there.
It really is.
The text we're analyzing today explicitly warns against judging a job offer solely by that headline number.
Because looking at a headline CTC it's like looking at a flashy car ad on television.
Oh, totally.
It looks amazing, right? It's speeding down a mountain road, taking those sharp turns. But once you sit down and read the fine print at the dealership, you realize the steering wheel, the engine, and the tires are all classified as variable components.
That is a highly accurate analogy.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. What you have to understand is the psychology and the cash flow mechanics behind the CTC structure.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, companies design that number to look as massive and competitive as possible to lure in top talent.
Sure, they want to look like they pay the best.
Exactly. But you have to break it down. What is the actual fixed monthly salary?
The actual cash in hand.
Right. Because then you have variable pay, which is often tied to company-wide targets or maybe aggressive personal KPIs that you might never realistically hit.
And the company knows that. Statistically, they know they will rarely have to pay out that full variable amount.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It shifts the financial risk of the business's performance directly onto the new hire.
Wow.
And it doesn't stop there. That shiny CTC number usually rolls in the employer's mandated contributions, gratuity, and sometimes even a quantified value for workplace benefits.
Like free lunches or something?
Sometimes, yeah. But mostly things like statutory benefits. They're taking money that is legally mandated to be paid into your long-term retirement accounts and framing it as if it's part of your immediate spendable income.
So the psychological impact of that is just huge.
It really is.
You accept a job thinking your market value is this big X number, but your actual monthly take-home pay feels like a fraction of that.
Yeah.
You're starting the relationship on a foundation of disillusionment right from day one.
It immediately puts the employee on the back foot. And this strategy of getting more value out of an employee than you're strictly paying for, it extends well past the hiring phase.
Oh, I'm sure.
It leads directly into the false promotion trap.
Oh, I've heard of this.
The classic line, take the promotion now, handle the new responsibilities, and we'll revise your salary later when the budget opens up.
Okay, let's follow that logic for a second. Taking on more responsibility without clearly documented compensation, without a formal change in designation, is essentially agreeing to work for free. Because once you're already doing the work for your current lower salary, what incentive does a company actually have to suddenly start paying you more for it?
None. Absolutely none. You've already demonstrated you will give them the increased output without the financial input.
Right.
You've completely surrendered your leverage. The text is very firm on this. Taking on undocumented responsibility is a masterclass in how companies extract unpaid labor.
It's just wild.
They dangle the carrot of future financial reward, but unless it's in writing, that extra work just becomes your new, permanent, unpaid baseline.
So this illusion of value, what we see in the offer letter and the fake promotions, it sets a very specific precedent.
It does.
If an employer is comfortable shifting the financial risk onto you during the hiring and promotion phases, it naturally follows that they will try to shift operational risk onto you during your daily work.
That's the progression, yeah.
Which brings us to the normalization of burnout and a phrase almost everyone has heard. Everyone works 12 to 14 hours here.
The badge of honor that is actually a massive red flag.
Exactly. But I want to push back on this for a second, just to play devil's advocate for you. If you're listening and currently working in say, a hyper-growth startup or a highly competitive firm.
Sure.
What if the company is just genuinely driven? Isn't sacrificing weekends and grinding out those 14-hour days just what it takes to succeed, innovate, and build something great these days?
It's a very common rationalization.
Right.
And it's exactly how toxic cultures manage to thrive and recruit.
Okay.
But we have to deconstruct what is actually happening behind the scenes of a 14-hour workday.
Walk me through that difference, because in a lot of corporate spaces, those two concepts are treated as identical. Like whoever leaves the office last is the highest performer.
Right. But think about the underlying business logic.
Okay.
True high performance is about output, efficiency, strategic thinking, and innovation. If a business model relies on salaried staff working 14-hour days, sacrificing every evening, weekend, and holiday just to keep the lights on and hit basic targets, that is not high performance.
No.
That is a catastrophic resource planning failure at the leadership level.
That makes perfect sense. So they are understaffed, and rather than hire more people, they're extracting double shifts from the existing payroll.
Exactly. It's masking operational incompetence with employee exhaustion.
Wow. Operational incompetence.
Yeah, and founders and executives often project their own equity-based motivation onto salaried employees.
Oh, that's such a good point.
If you own the company, a 14-hour day is an investment in your own asset.
Right, because you get the payout if it sells or goes public.
Exactly. But if you are a salaried employee, a mandatory 14-hour day is just a drastic reduction in your hourly wage.
Yeah, when you do the math.
Normalizing that kind of burnout is just equating physical presence and sheer endurance with professional value, which is, honestly, it's an incredibly lazy way to manage a team.
That is a crucial distinction to keep in mind. Now, it's one thing for a company to monopolize your time, but it is an entirely different level of toxicity when they start messing with your actual livelihood and your legal dues.
Yes.
This is where we move from poor management into potential wage theft. Let's talk about the money game.
The money game. The most glaring example the text addresses here is the excuse, salary will come when we have funds.
It's astounding that this happens, but the data shows it's incredibly common. Employees are essentially told to become the company's unofficial lenders.
And that's exactly what it is. It's an interest-free loan that you never consented to provide.
Never.
When you do the work, you earn the wage. Full stop. The financial problems of a business, the cash flow issues, the delayed funding rounds, those are entrepreneurial risks.
Right.
They are the burden of the ownership and the executive team. The risk of the business failing to manage its money should never be transferred to the employee who has already delivered their labor.
Because they've already done their part of the contract.
Exactly. Withholding earned wages indefinitely is not a team-building exercise where everyone tightens their belts. It's a breach of contract.
And this blatant withholding extends beyond just the monthly paycheck into statutory benefits. The text highlights companies that say things like, oh, don't worry about PF, ESI, gratuity, we'll handle it later.
Yeah, this is where we have to explain the mechanics of what these benefits actually are, because companies often treat them like they're optional perks.
Right, yeah.
Like casual Fridays or free coffee in the break room.
Just a nice little bonus.
Right, but they are not.
Right, so we're talking about Provident Fund, employee state insurance, gratuity.
Exactly. Let's take the Provident Fund, or PF, as an example.
Okay.
This is a legally mandated, decades-long compounding safety net meant for your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
A portion is deducted from your salary, and the employer is mandated to match a portion and deposit it.
Right.
So when a company deducts that money from your paycheck, but defers actually paying it into your PF account with the government, they aren't just delaying a perk.
Yeah.
They are actively damaging your future financial security. They are halting the compound interest on your money.
They are essentially taking the money out of your pocket, calling it a deduction on your payslip, and then using it to float their own internal expenses.
Which is a severe compliance failure.
Wow.
The text draws a very hard line here. There is a stark difference between cost management and withholding someone's earned money.
Yeah.
When applicable laws require these contributions, they are mandatory. Disguising wage theft as, cost management during a tough quarter is illegal.
It's just illegal. So we've seen how the power dynamic operates during the hiring illusions, the daily burnout, and the vanishing money. Let's look at what happens when this whole relationship falls apart.
The exit.
The exit. Because reading through this material, the end of the employment life cycle is where employees are often the most vulnerable to manipulation.
Oh, without a doubt. The power dynamic shifts dramatically when an exit is on the table, especially an employer-initiated one.
Right.
The company has all the structural power, and the employee is often caught off guard, they're anxious, and they're just trying to protect their immediate future.
Okay, let's bring this to life so the listener can hear exactly how this pressure is applied in real time. Let's role play this for a second.
Sure.
I will be the toxic HR representative tasked with offloading headcount, and you be the informed employee who understands everything we've just discussed.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. Listen, I know this is sudden, but unfortunately, due to some internal restructuring, we're going to have to let you go. It's strictly a business decision.
Okay.
To keep things smooth and make sure you get good references, we just need you to send in your resignation letter from your company email by 5 p.m. today. And I have the settlement declaration right here.
Right.
Don't worry about the fine print. It's just standard HR procedure. Just sign at the bottom so we can process your final payout.
Well, I understand the company is making a business decision to terminate my employment. However, a resignation is meant to genuinely be my decision. I won't be sending a resignation letter to make an employer-initiated separation appear voluntary. And as for the settlement declaration, I don't sign any documents under immediate pressure. I'll need to take a copy of this, review the completed document thoroughly, and then provide my signature once I actually agree to the terms.
Okay. Dropping the persona. That was incredibly tense.
It's very uncomfortable in the room.
Yeah, but it highlights exactly how these conversations go down. Let's unpack the mechanics of what just happened. Why does the employer, who clearly wants to terminate the employee, pressure them so hard to resign instead?
It's a classic sleight of hand to limit corporate liability.
Okay.
If a company terminates you, they carry a burden. Depending on your contract, they might owe you severance pay.
Right.
They might have to formally document a cause, like poor performance, which takes time and paperwork. They also open themselves up to potential claims of wrongful termination if the firing was retaliatory or discriminatory.
But if you resign...
If you resign, you are legally going on the record to say, I chose to leave this organization.
Wow.
By doing that, you instantly absolve the company of that liability. You often forfeit any right to severance. You lose leverage in negotiating your exit terms.
That is wild.
The text explicitly warns employees to be hyper-cautious about this. There is a massive legal difference between a legitimate business restructuring and strong-arming an employee into writing a fake resignation letter.
And then there's the second tactic used in that role play, the pressure to sign paperwork immediately under the guise of, oh, it's just standard HR procedure.
Yeah, that phrase is one of the biggest red flags in the corporate world.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The goal is to get your signature before you process what you're actually agreeing to. Never blindly sign resignation letters, settlement declarations, disciplinary documents, or backdated agreements just because someone in HR tells you it's procedure.
Because once your signature is on that paper, it does not matter what verbal assurances were given to you in that room.
Exactly. The written contract supersedes the verbal conversation.
Always.
Always. If you sign a settlement declaration, that says, I have received all my full and final dues, but they told you verbally the money would be wired next week,
Oh, no.
you have legally agreed that you are fully paid.
And if the money never comes?
You have no recourse. You signed away your right to dispute it.
That is terrifying, which perfectly tees up the final hurdle the text points out, the delayed full and final settlement, or F&F.
Oh, yes.
The classic line, your F&F will happen whenever the accounts department clears it.
Leaving an organization should not mean spending the next 6 months chasing your own salary, your approved expense reimbursements, or your earned incentives.
Right.
Using administrative delays to withhold a final settlement is a final flex of control by a toxic employer.
Wow.
It's meant to exhaust you into just giving up and walking away without what is legally yours.
So we have identified these massive structural red flags from the day you read the inflated job offer to the day you walk out the door. How do we take this information and turn it into a defensive playbook? If you're listening to this and recognizing your own workplace, how do you actively protect yourself starting tomorrow?
Well, it comes down to shifting your mindset.
Okay.
You have to move from being a passive participant in your career to being an active manager of your own employment record.
That makes sense.
Toxic workplaces thrive on ambiguity and a lack of documentation. So your best defense is a paper trail.
Which means we can trace a clear line through how you handle your daily administration. First, based on our role play, the absolute baseline is reading before you sign.
Yes.
If they apply high-pressure tactics, that's your cue to slow down and read it twice.
Absolutely. And the natural extension of that is demanding that important decisions be put in writing. We established earlier that verbal promises in a corporate setting essentially don't exist.
Right, the work now, pay later thing.
Exactly. If you are given a promotion, a change in role, or a promise of future compensation, ask for an email confirming the details. It completely removes the ambiguity that toxic managers use to backtrack later.
But getting it in an email is only half the battle, right? Because what happens if things go south and you are suddenly locked out of the company servers?
Oh, this is a critical point.
Yeah.
You have to maintain your own employment records.
Like physically?
Physically or on a personal hard drive, yeah. Do not rely solely on the company's internal portal or your work email to store your career history.
Okay.
Offer letters, pay slips, performance reviews, commendations, and any emails documenting a change in your role. Keep personal, secure copies of all of these essentials.
Because the moment an exit becomes hostile, your access to the company's internal systems will be revoked immediately.
Immediately. You need your proof in your own hands.
And when you're looking at those pay slips you've saved, you need to actively verify the money. We talked about how companies defer PF and gratuity. You have to check your pay slips and question unexplained deductions.
Trust, but verify.
Right.
You need to confirm that the money being deducted from your fixed salary is actually making its way to the respective statutory bodies.
Like checking the PF portal online.
Yes, you can check your PF balance through government portals. Don't just assume the administrative machinery of your company is working perfectly and legally. Verify that your safety net is actually being funded.
And if you start noticing discrepancies, or if you are dealing with forced 14-hour shifts and abusive management, how do you document that?
You keep a contemporaneous log.
A contemporaneous log, meaning write it down right when it happens.
Exactly. If you were experiencing a severely toxic environment or facing pressure to resign, document it as it happens. Write down dates, times, exactly what was said, and note if anyone else was present in the room or on the call.
So it's not just your memory versus theirs a month later.
Right. Having a detailed, time-stamped log shifts the dynamic entirely. If you eventually need to use internal grievance channels or seek legal recourse, you aren't just bringing vague complaints.
You're bringing facts.
You are bringing an airtight, documented case.
It's incredibly empowering when you break it down like that. It takes this giant, intimidating corporate structure that seems to hold all the cards and breaks it down into manageable, controllable actions that shift the power back to you.
It does.
Which brings us to the concluding philosophy of the manifesto we've been analyzing today.
The text states it very simply. Good employers don't fear informed employees.
That perfectly encapsulates everything. Because a healthy business model doesn't require its workers to be ignorant of their rights.
Exactly. A good employer builds a workplace where you don't need to fight for basic fairness.
Right.
They rely on transparency, clear expectations, and mutual respect to maintain order, rather than relying on the employee's fear and lack of knowledge.
Our mission today was to give you the tools to navigate these murky waters, to empower you to speak up, ensure you're getting exactly what you've earned, and demand ethical work practices. Because ultimately, your boundaries are yours to enforce.
And exploring all of this raises one final important question for you to ponder.
Let's hear it.
A little thought experiment to take away from this. If so many of these toxic workplace practices, the fake CTCs, the unpaid promotions, the forced resignations,
Yeah.
if they rely entirely on employee silence and the assumption that you simply don't know your rights, what happens to the entire corporate ecosystem when radical transparency becomes the new normal?
Wow.
If every single employee started asking for everything in writing tomorrow, how would corporate culture have to fundamentally change?
That's a great question. We'll leave you to chew on that. Keep asking questions, keep reading the fine print, and remember, just like renting that apartment, you are providing a service, not selling your soul. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.